is because there's so much in the material world is there, and we're so much exposed to the material world that it starts to affect us unless we're well, actually focused on what Krishna consciousness is, and that helps us then to go into deeper levels of Krishna consciousness and be more attracted and attached to Krishna, which is what the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement is. So I'll start just on my Gina Jimanandasya Jana Jana Shalakya Chakshur spiritual master, open my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respect and obedience to him. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 It's reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, verses 20 all the way through to 42. So we may not get to all of it, but don't worry, there's a lot in each part, so there's, each section could be a class in itself. But I'm going to start by going right into the middle of one of Srila Prabhupada's purports. This is in the purport of text 20, so it's 4:29:20. Being fixed in Krishna consciousness, one can become free from the entanglement of birth and death and the vain struggle for existence. In these verses, the words Mriga Trishnam Pradavati are very significant because the living entity is influenced by a thirst for sense enjoyment. He is like a deer that goes to the desert to search out water. In a desert, an animal simply searches in vain for water. Why is that?
An animal
he searches in vain.
Searches in vain for water.
Yeah, why?
He's pleasure seeking.
Illusion of water.
Yeah, because there is no water in the desert.
Why is there no one?
There's no one. So, so someone's going into the desert looking for water. There's no water there. But, of course, there is no water in the desert, and the animal simply sacrifices his life in attempts to find it. So he goes right into the desert to look for water, and there's no water there. But there's a mirage of water there. So everyone is planning for future happiness, thinking that somehow or other, if he can reach a certain point, he will be happy. So do you get the parallel on that? He's going in looking for water. There's no water. There's a mirage there. So in the same way, the Prabhupada says, everyone is planning for future happiness. We're the same. We're planning for future happiness, or we have been for many lifetimes. So, thinking somehow or other, if he can reach a certain point, he will be happy. In actuality, however, when he comes to that point, he sees that there is no happiness. I've got this job, I've got this, finally I've got the house I've always wanted. Oh, wait a minute, what's wrong? I don't feel happy. Why not? Because I want something else, or I want something, and then the mind starts going on thinking about all the other things it wants. So it's the way Prabhupada has put it. It makes it very clear. He then plans to go further and further to another point. This is called Mriga Trishna, and its basis is sense enjoyment in this material world. So that's where it comes from. There's that desire for sense enjoyment. I heard one devotee this morning, our good friends who several of you did the disciple course with. It's Shamananda, and he was doing a talk over in Bangladesh. And it's like he was saying that this desire is like, when he was talking about pride, he was saying that pride is like it's almost like a total denial of Krishna. So there's the sense enjoyment is a bit like that, you know. We want to enjoy ourselves, you know. Whereas our constitutional position is as a servant of Krishna to please Krishna, and then we'll be happy. But it's just like, okay, forget Krishna for a minute. Where can I enjoy, you know? So that this is the unfortunate position of the living entity in this world. So. A very interesting next translation. This is to do. I won't go into the whole story of it, but there's a whole story behind it because, well, I go into a little bit. Narada is talking to this king, Prachinabarashat, and he's telling the king that, you know, if he doesn't get out of his entangled position, he's going to suffer in his next life, basically. And so he gave him an analogy. He gave a whole analogy of what it was like, and to try to convince the king. But at the end, the king said, "I can't understand the analogy. Can you explain it more clearly?" So now Narada is just telling him more clearly, like straight as it is. Now he's referring back to the analogy a little bit. So there's some terms here which you may not know straight away, but. What was described as Kalakanya should be understood as old age. So he was telling him about old age. No one wants to accept old age, but Yavaneshwar, Yavanaraj, is Yamaraj, who is death, accepts Jara, which is old age, as a sister. So there's death and there's old age. Birth, death, disease, and old age, you know. So there's death, old age. So they're coming together. There was, so this is, okay, I'll just say what Prabhu says in the purport. One is subjected to the influence of Yavaraj and his sister due to impious activity. Those who are in Krishna consciousness and are engaged in devotional service, under the instructions of Narada Muni, are not subjected to the influence of Yamaraj and his sister Jara, as death and old age. If one is Krishna conscious, he conquers death. After leaving the material body, he does not accept another body that is material, but returns home back to Godhead. This is verified by Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Anyone know what that is? One who understands the transcendental nature of my birth and activities does not, upon leaving this body, take his birth again, but attains to my transcendental abode origin. So Prabhupada, in another purport, he talks about old age, and he talks about that in old age you lose your power of digestion, you lose your power to see, your hearing goes, your face starts to wrinkle, so you get short of breath. In other words, all your organs start to get really affected and reduced. And at that time, basically, if one doesn't take to Krishna consciousness, one is going to actually experience that again. You know, birth, death, disease, and old age. And so that shows the power and potency of Krishna consciousness. But it's also just to not for us to think that we can enjoy here is a huge mistake, you know, because it's so fleeting. The one lifetime is so fleeting because believe it or not, we've had millions. That's according to the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. We've had millions, literally, and we keep on thinking we can enjoy here. That's the problem, you know. We keep on thinking that, and we keep on striving for it, and unless we develop the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, we're going to come back again. It may be better, it may be worse, but it's going to be, it's ultimately going to be worse, you could say, even if it's so-called better, because it means you're just repeating that same thing, the same cycle. So it's really important for us to do that. In page 706, Prabhupada starts to explain what some of these things are. And it's really interesting the way Prabhupada puts it, because just in case we're in any illusion about it, that there is enjoyment here, he just starts to hammer it home, this point. You know, and that's what the guru does. That's what the founder of Charya does. The Acharya does. And the intestines. Oh yeah. Well, I'll just read it a little bit further. Because of the material body, the living entity is subjected to many tribulations brought about by air, water, fire, extreme heat, extreme cold, sunshine, excessive eating, unhealthy food, maladjustments of the three elements of the body. What are they? What's the three elements of the body? Kapha, Pitta, Vaya. And so on. The intestines, the throat, the brain, and the other parts of the body are affected by all kinds of diseases that are so powerful that they become sources of extreme suffering for the living entity. The living entity, however, is different from all these material elements. The two types of fever described in this verse can be explained in contemporary language as pneumonia and typhoid. When there is an extreme fever in the body, there is typhoid and pneumonia. And they are described as prajra. There are also other miseries, just in case you didn't have enough miseries. Yeah. There are other, created by other living entities. The state exacts taxes. And there are also many thieves, rogues and cheaters. Just like Dina was in the park yesterday, he met a few thieves and rogues, you know. And they were young even, they were just practicing, but miseries brought about by other living entities are called adibodhika. There are also miseries in the form of famine, pestilence, scarcity, war, earthquakes. And then Prabhupada doesn't use it here, but he does say he does says pestilence, so that's close. They are caused by the demigods or other sources beyond our control. Actually, there are many enemies of the living entities, and these are all described to point out how miserable the material existence is. So that's why I was saying that this is kind of like in the kind of more the heavy side, but it's the real side, and it's because I was just thinking that as preachers in the Krishna consciousness movement, what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop people from having to experience more another body. We're trying to stop ourselves from experiencing another body, but we're also trying to stop other people. And I actually got a little picture of that yesterday because I was reading some of these purports, and then I was on the street and we were chanting, and I was kind of see what is it? What we're trying to do? Why are we here? But I actually got that feeling that we're trying to help these people to stop having another body. They don't really know why we're there, whatever, but we're trying to do that for them. That's why, because we have this knowledge. We actually have this knowledge how this can happen and how it can be done. And if we can bring them closer and give them more information about what we're doing and how we can do it, then that's all the better, you know. We're doing it on the instruction of Srila Prabhupada as well. So why do we do this? Why did we come to this situation in the first place? You know, why do we want to enjoy separately from Krishna? In the translation, Prabhupada says, the living entity by nature has minute independence to choose his own good or bad fortune. But when he forgets his supreme master, the personality of Godhead, he gives himself up unto the modes of material nature. Being influenced by the modes of material nature, he identifies himself with the body and for the interest of the body, becomes attached to various activities. Sometimes he is under the influence of the mode of ignorance, sometimes of the mode of passion, and sometimes the mode of goodness. The living entity thus gets different types of bodies under the modes of material nature. So well, the point, let me get back to the point I wanted, why the living entity chooses. Because that's, he has a choice. He can stay in the spiritual world, or he can choose his own misfortune and try to enjoy separately. And this is what happens. The living entity's constitutional position is very minute. Sorry, it is clearly explained herein that the living entity has a little independence, indicated by the word svadrik, meaning one who can see his own welfare. The living entity's constitutional position is very minute, and he can be misled in his choice. He may choose to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A servant may desire to start his own business and imitate his master, and when he chooses to do so, he may leave the protection of his master. Sometimes he is a failure, and sometimes he is successful. Similarly, the living entity, part and parcel of Krishna, starts his own business to compete with the Lord. Isn't it amazing the way Prabhupada, he starts, okay, I'm going to start a business. I go, and the business is to compete with the Lord. And here's a real, Prabhupada says, real sting to it. There are many competitors out to attain the Lord's position. But to become like the Lord is not at all possible. Thus, there is a great struggle for existence with the material world as different parties try to imitate the Lord. Material bondage is caused by deviation from the service of the Lord and attempts to imitate him. The Lord is, I'll just stop there first. So, that you're trying to imitate the Lord, you're trying to set up your own business to be the Lord. You can, even in the business world, really, ultimately that's what people are doing. I want to start my own business because I don't have to bother with anybody else. And one is hammer and tongs trying to make that business successful. And then there's other people also trying to have their business successful. And there's so much competition to be the Lord. And so therefore there's no harmony in the world. It's not meant to go like that. There's no harmony there, because everyone's trying to be the Lord. So you can't have everybody be the Lord. In fact, none of the people who are in the world can be the Lord. So therefore, they're all competing with each other, and they're creating all sorts of distress, whether it is individually, whether it is even within a family, within a group, within a country, and then countries are competing the same way. It's the same thing. We're all competing for resources. I want to be the master, so I want to be in charge, so I need this, and you be, and then this exploitation happens. Exploitation is intrinsic in this situation, because Krishna, he has the living entity's welfare at heart. Krishna is only interested in the living entity, but the other so-called masters, they're interested in their welfare, and therefore they exploit other people. So it's almost, it's a given. In the material world, you're here to exploit others for your pleasure. So it's very hard not to. Obviously, if we can have, Prabhu called it a competitionless society with God in the center. That's how we describe it. And the example is given of the you throw a stone into a lake and the ripples go out, and so that's fine, because but you throw another stone into a lake, another master, then the ripples start to, and then another one, and they all start to crashing against each other, But if we have God in the center, then it's easy. There's no friction, and there is a competition, all right, but it's just to please God, and that competition is actually good. That competition is healthy. Even Prabhupada, sometimes he would, even among his disciples, he would ask for that, a little bit of competition. He didn't find that, he found that okay, because you're competing to please God. So long as there wasn't, you're not going back into the other type of competition, where you want to be seen as the great person in front of the guru or something like that. Text 710 is just, Covered by the mode of ignorance in material nature, the living entity is sometimes a male, sometimes a female, sometimes a eunuch, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a bird, an animal, and so on. In this way, he is wandering within the material world. His acceptance of different types of bodies is brought about by activities under the influence of the modes of nature. Actually, the living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. Therefore, he is spiritual in quality. The living entity is never material, and his material conception is simply a mistake due to forgetfulness. He is as brilliant as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Both the sun and the sunshine are very brilliant. The Lord is like the full shining sun, and the living entities are like small particles of that sun, which constitute the all-pervasive sunshine. When these small particles are covered by the cloud of Maya, they lose their shining capacity. When the cloud of Maya is gone, the particles again become brilliant and shining. As soon as the living entity is covered by ignorance of Maya or darkness, he cannot understand his relationship with the Supreme God. Somehow or other, if he comes before the Lord, he can see himself as shining as the Supreme Lord, although he is not as extensive as the Lord. Because the living entity desires to imitate the Supreme Lord, he is covered by Maya. We cannot imitate the Lord, nor can we become the Supreme Enjoyer. This is not possible. And when we think it is, we become conditioned by Maya. Thus the engagement of the living entity under the clutches of Maya is brought about by forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So it's a real unfortunate situation, The living entity is covered by Maya, and he cannot, and has lost his relationship with the Supreme. So it is a totally lamentable and such a sad situation. And that's why you find that, and you can hear it here in Prabhupada's purport, how these great devotees, they have great compassion, because that's all they're doing. Srila Prabhupada was represented out on the street the other day, because he has this such compassion for all the living entities who are suffering. He just wants all those living entities who are there to stop suffering and to experience their relationship with God. So that's why he is enthused, or he has encouraged his devotees to go and to try to help the living entities. And even though we may not be fully realized as to why we're doing it, but we can get that realization. And the more we know why we're doing something, then the better we're going to do it. In that sense also, the more that we will do it as well. Because Prabhupada, his movement initially, he wanted, not initially, but still, he wanted us 100% engaged in the service of the Lord, 100% engaged. He wanted us to constantly think of Krishna, basically. And when we think of Krishna and we think of the spiritual master, there's all these verses in the morning that we say, the spiritual master is as good as Krishna. He performs all the service to Krishna. If we serve the spiritual master, then it's as good as serving Krishna. And that's also to do with the service to Srila Prabhupada's movement as well. His Holiness Bhakti Chur Maharaj was such a strong personality in that whole idea of serving the Krishna consciousness movement, because in that way Prabhupada is able to get out to as many people as so it's through that great compassion that we actually serve, and we're able to convey that compassion to others, and then they can actually get to see that. You can get to see Krishna face to face, because they cannot otherwise. No matter what anybody tells you, this is the point. This is a science. This is actually a spiritual science. It's not the Krishna movement. It's not, what I'm saying is, it's not a sectarian movement that we're different from other. Okay, no, this is what we're doing, and they're doing this, and no, our God is this. This is the science, and this is the beauty that you will find in Krishna consciousness, that it's clearly explained as a science, that we're stopping people from experiencing birth and death. That's what it's about. We're going to experience that ourselves. Chapter 4, text number 9. We're going to experience that ourselves, and then we're also we're going to be then more able to give it to others, but always remember that it is not an sectarian thing, and that's why we can act with we can act with authority, and we can act with conviction, because we're like it's like a science, We used to have Sheila, who's now Sheila Govinda. He was working in the labs in DCU, but it's like science is like that. You apply something, and there is a result. In relation to what you're doing, you're doing an experiment, and it's a successful experiment, and then you can see that that's the science of how this is done. So like in our sense as well, we are applying this science so that people can stop experience birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. And you often hear about this thing about these things these days about there's a woke person, person's awake. But unfortunately, everybody's in a dream, in an illusion. That's the real woke, They're in the illusion that they can either enjoy here in this material world, or that this material world is real. It's real, but it's temporary. And it's like a dream. So we're trying to wake people from the dream. So in that sense, this is a science as well. We're the original wokers, trying to wake people, because we have the science to do it. This is what we use. Prabhupada then compares the living entity. It is in the Bhagavatam, and it's comparing the living entity to a dog. The living entity is exactly like a dog, who, overcome with hunger, goes from door to door for some food. According to his destiny, he sometimes receives punishment and is driven out, and other times he receives a little food to eat. Similarly, the living entity, being influenced by so many desires, okay, do you get that? What is he influenced by so many? Desires. So many. Where do those desires come from?
Krishna.
Yeah, but when they're
Where they come from?
when they're misdirected, it's the mind.
False ego.
False ego and the mind. The mind comes up with all of these different desires. What about this? The mind is like a constant desire, machine. But similarly, the living entity, being influenced by so many desires, wanders in different species of life. Can you imagine? According to destiny. Sometimes he is high, and sometimes he is low. Sometimes he goes to the heavenly planets, sometimes to hell. Sometimes in the middle planets, and so on. Prabhu in his purport, he talks about this. By chance a dog may get a very rich owner, and by chance he may become a street dog. As the dog of a rich man, he will live very opulently. Sometimes in Western countries, for instance, we hear of a master leaving millions of dollars to a dog in his will. Of course, there are many dogs loitering in the street without food. Therefore, to liken the conditional existence of the living entity to that of a dog is very appropriate. An intelligent human being, however, can understand that if he has to live the life of a dog, he had best become Krishna's dog. So in the material world, a dog is sometimes elevated and sometimes in the street. But in the spiritual world, Krishna's dog is perpetually, eternally happy. So it's the Shanti's Krishna's dog, very good. Now, this is a very important point to remember. the living entities are trying to counteract different miserable conditions pertaining to providence, other living entities, other body and mind. Still, they remain conditioned by the laws of material nature despite all attempts to counter these laws. So, then it says, a man may carry a burden on his head, and when he feels it too heavy, on his burden, he sometimes gives relief to put it onto the burden on his shoulder. In this way, he tries to relieve himself of the burden. However, whatever process he devises to counter the burden does nothing more than put the same burden from one place to another. So, all our attempts to try to enjoy, I want a bigger house, a bigger car. I mean, that's the one. I mean, a little while ago, I was thinking, oh yeah, but maybe I should change the car, you know. And eventually, the COVID kind of put paid to that. But eventually, I should. But then I started looking like, yeah, what's this model here, this model here, this model, you know. And I still got the same car. It was just the same anyway. You know, I'm no happier or no sadder than. In fact, I'm probably better off because I'd be going around thinking, yes, now I'm in this car, you know. So that's the living entity. That's why we're here. We're thinking, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that, maybe if I do that. Okay, there is a sense that we can do it in a service to Krishna. We can change the position if it's if for our service we may need something, but that's how we do that. Collectively we do that by, we have so many cars on the road. I mean, coming in to today, like on the quays, it's like non-stop. You go a few feet. It takes us about 20 minutes to get to the quays, and it's about 12 kilometers away. But then the last kilometer takes longer. But so there's cars, there's roads. Look at all the trouble that's made to make roads. Huge amounts. I mean, all these motorways now. Okay, it's all very nice. Driving the motorways and whatever. We can come to the temple easier, and it takes shorter to come to the temple from Galway and so on. But still, all the trouble made to make those roads was huge. And there's traffic jams. Then there's petrol. Petrol. We're taking the juice out of the earth, and it's done on such a huge scale. And then not only that, but then there's air pollution, So we're trying to make things easier, but this is the material world. It was set up this way. It was set up to do these things for us. We're trying to make things easier for our sense enjoyment, and the mind dreams of all these, electric toothbrush, and constantly trying to make things better, to make things more physically comfortable, Previously, we would have to go to the well to get water, or go to the river. Even to evacuate, we would have to go somewhere. Now, the latrines these days can be like palatial. Some person has a latrine or a toilet, which is a bathroom, which is better, which is 100 times better than maybe some people's houses. And that's the rub. For you to have your nice toilet, other people are suffering all around the world. That's the nature of it. So try to get the balance there. We get this envelope in our letterbox for concern. Our concern is trying to help people in the world. Okay, I'm no comment on that as such. I mean, they're helping in general, but the way we live our lives is exactly why they're looking to try to help people in the world. It's like it's such an entanglement, and we're trying, as Prabhu was saying, is just trying to shift, the weight from one thing to another. We're trying to be happy, but the world is a complete disaster from that point of view. I have a little note here. Human society, in the name of civilization, is creating one kind of trouble to avoid another kind of trouble. In contemporary civilization, we see that there are many automobiles. Oh, he uses this point actually. conclusion is that the processes we manufacture to counteract or minimize our distresses do not actually put an end to our pains. It is all simply illusion. We simply place the burden from the head to the shoulder. The only real way we can minimize our problems is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and give ourselves up to His protection. The Lord, being all-powerful, can make arrangements to mitigate our painful life in material existence. So we know there's problems here, but if somehow we can surrender unto the Supreme, we can actually really mitigate the problems. So the goal is to learn how to surrender to the Supreme. It's one of the most important things that we have to learn how to do. And that surrender to the Supreme, we're able to do it if we can develop humility. And that humility means that we're able to be away from the false ego, the thinking that we're the master, and the think that we're here in this world to make us to satisfy our senses, and we're dictating everything so that we can have a good time, whatever. So this is what's preventing us from actually experiencing God, So it's all intertwined. I just want also to say about this point about the dream again. One can counteract a dream only by awakening. Similarly, our material existence is due to our ignorance and illusion. Unless we awaken to Krishna consciousness, we cannot be relieved of such dreams. For the ultimate solution to all problems, we must awaken to Krishna consciousness. So this is the Bhagavatam telling us exactly what to do. How at the end of our lifetime, when we're breathing our last, we won't take another body. That's what Krishna consciousness is doing for us. It's such an important thing. It's mentioned there already. I want to come back to a very nice verse from the Bhagavatam. Tasyaiva heto prayate takovito na labhyate yad brahmatam upayada kalabhyate dukkavad anyata sukham kalena sarvachagam kabiranam nasa. And this all applies to everyone in this room and anybody who's listening. It says, people who are actually intelligent, that's us, isn't it? That's what we're aspiring for. And philosophically inclined should endeavour only for that purposeful end which is not attainable even by wandering to the topmost planet. What's the topmost planet? Brahmaloka. What's the verse that goes with that? Brahma Bhuvanaloka. From the highest planet down to the lowest, all are places of suffering wherein repeated material takes place. So, let's get it exactly. That's very good, because that's the important part for us on this. It's one attains to my abode never desires to go there, I think. I know that's in 4.9 anyway, but that's what we're here. We're going from the highest abode to the lowest, looking for enjoyment, just because we're dictated to by our senses. So we have to control the mind so that we don't, But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So we've got the choice. We really have the choice. This is a great opportunity. This lifetime, it is a great opportunity. We may not get it again. Who knows? But we have it now. We have a great opportunity, not to be wandering around looking for happiness in all these different species of life and whatever. But one who attains to my abode never takes birth again. So this says that as far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. just as in course of time we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. So let that sink in. I mean, we're looking for a better apartment, a better house, a better this, a better that. Okay, is that wrong? Depending why we're doing it, actually. It's the motivation in which we're doing it. We may be doing it so that we can live near the temple. That's very good motivation, do you know? But if we're doing it so we can have higher sense gratification. So what does it say here? It says that that happiness is derived from sense enjoyment. It can be attained automatically in the course of time. Why is it obtained automatically? Because of your karma, exactly. Do you know, our karma has kind of always dictated. It's not that we're just here out of the blue, you know, and it's just all going to happen now, you know. But it's already ordained, you know. The distress and the happiness is already ordained. So therefore, you know, there's no point in rushing for it, you know. And that's why this whole idea of our eco-community is meant. We're trying to do this so that people will understand that just to live simply, you know, live in a simple manner. Don't be rushing around trying to get things, you know. It's going to happen to you anyway. So, how do you prepare yourself for it then? How do you prepare? How do you prepare yourself? You're going to get some happiness and you're going to get some distress. Can you avoid this distress? You can't. You can't avoid it. It's going to happen.
Neither happiness, you can't avoid it.
Yes, exactly. You know, you'll get.
Is it happiness?
Pardon?
Is it Prabhupada's point? Is it happiness?
Is it happiness? Exactly.
Just removal of suffering.
Yeah, that's even better. Yes, it's only a temporary alleviation of the distress. The so-called happiness. One of the reasons why I'm particularly strong on this is because, even when I chose this class, is because before I met the devotees, I tried to enjoy separately quite, you know, a lot of endeavor. But I actually was fortunate enough to get the realization that this isn't happiness. What people are saying is happiness. You know, like I would try to enjoy every night. At one time, the realization came to me for a year, and I could count probably 2 times out of 100 times going out that I actually had something like it was kind of okay, you know. And I was really distressed by that because why am I not enjoying like everybody else? You know, seeing everybody else enjoying. That's 2 times in the whole year. My God, that's terrible. You know, what a percentage, you know. You try 100 times and twice you get a little, and then I realized, no, that's the position with everybody. Everybody's in that position. You know, everyone thinks that there is enjoyment here. And it's still for that. And what is that 2 times? That's the drop of water in the desert. That's what it is. That's the drop of water in the desert that you're, you know, attracted by. You think, oh, it's water, you know. And it's a mirage, but it's presented as though it's the reality. But it's the drop of water. So that's why this class kind of manifested, because when I read this, I realized, you know, this is what I was going for. But it's not there. And so I'll just conclude because I'm kind of skipping a little bit, but it talks about that sometimes we suffer because we see a tiger in a dream or a snake in a vision, but actually there is neither a tiger nor a snake. Thus we create some situation in a subtle form and suffer the consequences. These sufferings cannot be mitigated unless we are awakened from our dream. So, when we're awake from the dream, then we can. I'm missing some brilliant stuff here, but there's two verses I'll finish on. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prajata Jana Jasu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadanaitakam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. The reason that we keep on coming back here again is because of attachment. We're just attached. We have this, you know, Or just somehow or other we're addicted to the material world. We're addicted. And we cannot give it up. The only way we can give it up is by performing bhakti yoga. The 7 processes of bhakti. Hearing, Shravanam, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaran, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sankam, Atmanam, Kirtan. Those are the 9. They run throughout Krishna consciousness, the 9 processes, should I say, of devotional service. They run throughout. So that you'll find that all throughout the Bhagavatam. Just learning those 9 processes of devotional service is so right. Because what they do is we become detached. Do you know? We become detached from all of this. It's almost automatic, and we get knowledge. Knowledge and detachment happens automatically. All we do is we put ourselves in front of the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and just hear. Just the process of hearing. Then that's all we have to do. We just have to put ourselves in front of the Bhagavatam and hear, and then it will happen. You know, it's actually happening because we can't do it by ourselves. You know, we're already bound. We cannot do it, but the hearing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, this is what does it, you know. And then we put ourselves in front of, just like we're doing today online, and as many times we can hear lectures as we can, you know, as many of these wonderful devotees that are all speaking at the moment, just do it as often as possible, because what that does is that it we'll hear the messages from the spiritual world. You know, the messages all come, and then automatically the mercy descends then. You know, it's not through our ability to work things out. You don't need university degrees. You know, you don't need this. You just have to be humble and submissively inquire and perform devotional service. And these are the ways in which it happens. And the knowledge actually comes down, and then we become detached from all of these things. So just finish with that other verse. Satam prasangam mama virya sanvido bhavante karna rasayana kata tajoshanat asvapa varga vartmani shutara tirvaktir anukamishati. In the association of pure devotees, discussions of the past times and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and to the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. So I was just looking at all the figures when devotees were reading the Krishna book in the evening time. There's lots and lots of people were clicking in. There was one person from Japan told me that they were listening to the class, you know, which is quite amazing. But it's like, so that's basically what was the constant flow of nectar. That's what Prabhu was putting. The cultivation of Krishna consciousness. My dear king, this is the last instruction from Narada. Well, one of the last. My dear king, that in that place where pure devotees live, following the rules and regulations, and thus purely conscious and engaged with great eagerness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that place, if one gets a chance to hear their constant flow of nectar, which is exactly like the waves of a river, one will forget the necessities of life, namely hunger and thirst, and become immune to all kinds of fear, lamentation, and illusion. Purport on that is brilliant. I'll just stop there. Just a few minutes, maybe, if anyone has a comment or a question.
Just interesting. Well, I'll say it anyway. So Prabhupada, wants us to get out in one life. And then if you read Shashastikam, all I want is consistent devotional service, birth after birth. So there appears to be a contradiction.
Yeah. If we want to get out in this life and to please Krishna, then that is a pure desire then as well.
Yeah, okay.
But because that's our goal here. We're trying to please Krishna. Okay, we're not trying to get out for ourselves as such. And I heard it said that sometimes devotees they really do this, or they want to do this to please Krishna, and to do it as to act in that way as an example for others to leave this material world in this lifetime. Sometimes Prabhu would say, "This is no place for a gentleman, and do your business and get out," you know. But then of course you have who reasons ill, who says that Vaishnavas died when they are living still in sand. The Vaishnava dies to live, and while living learns to give the holy name, spread the holy name around. So Vaishnavas in one sense never die in that way. And we also have all the parampara, all the devotees are there. You know, I remember one time, I think it was Sri Ramaraj was giving this talk about book distribution, and he was saying that every time a book goes out, the whole parampara is there, and it's going, oh, right, there's another one, you know. So by being kind of attached to the service in this world, it's almost like non-different from the spiritual world as well, you know. And I think that verse is also like that with Mama Janmani Janmani Ishwari, is that it's the same kind of mood that's just to serve to Krishna, and it's not for my enjoyment or my satisfaction, but it is just whatever to please Krishna. And that's what pure devotional service is. And now the last of the sun and God. And that it's not I was listening to a talk on this today actually. It's not it's like not the mode of goodness, so I can get, that's not liberation. You know, that might be better than not at all initially, you know. But ultimately what we want is pure devotional service. So then we put ourselves in Krishna's hands. If he wants us to come back after it, but
that's it.
So, but you will anyway, because if you're a Vaishnava, and you know you will still be living in some sound. And let me think more.
Also, it is said in scriptures that for Vaishnavas, the liberation stands behind their door with folded hands, ready to serve them.
Yeah.
So it means that you don't need to worry about it. If you're a Vaishnava, actually engaged in the process of preaching, you don't need to worry. You're already liberated. Prabhupada used the term imperceptibly liberated.
Yeah.
So, and then if you know that you're already liberated, basically, so what's left for you to do here? Just to help others to get liberated.
Yeah, that's right. Shiva Mukta, so we should say, like liberated while in the body, in that sense, Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Namadi Seva Mukta Jiva Namadi. Yes.
Yeah. Are we finished with this?
We can.
Is it Brahma Samhita Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha, right? Is it the first verse?
Yeah.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Sarvakarana Karana. No. Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karana. Yes. So you mentioned, I would like to argue with you.
Okay.
You said that we're not here out of the blue, but Krishna is Sarvakarana Karana, but Krishna is blue. We're out of the blue here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We are here because from blue.
There was another one with Radha. So I didn't watch that. I'm in the middle of watching this lecture, but it's similar to this topic. And one devotee was saying to Radha Swami, but it seems so difficult to get back in one lifetime. I mean, Jad Barrett didn't get back in one lifetime. It took him 3 lifetimes. Look how elevated he was. And and who Kenji Keita, he didn't get back in one lifetime. Victor, and look how elevated he is. So what chance have we got?
Yeah.
This is a tough video.
So you're in the middle. We wait then for the.
You're gonna wait. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Yeah. My own thing is is that was before Lord Chaitanya.
Is
That,
it-
yeah, that's the only tag that I go on, you know.
Yeah.
so this is Kali Yuga, and we've got the mercy, you know.
What was Maharaj's answer?
Sorry?
Somebody asked the question. What was
Someone asked it. I'm in the middle of watching.
It's a cliffhanger. You know,
It's a cliffhanger, yeah. But ultimately, Radha we began to answer the question by saying, but they did get back.
Yes.
And that's what he's saying, they did get Krishna's mercy.
Yeah.
So you could say that, now I haven't watched the whole video, but you could say that these are just examples to say, you've got this chance, don't muck up, don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This is how dangerous the material world is.
Yeah.
Because when Chitriketu, he was just laughing, but he wasn't laughing at, it wasn't out of envy. It was just, he was saying, oh look how amazing Lord Shiva is, he's sitting on the, you know, Parvati is sitting on his lap and he's giving a lecture on this. And it was Parvati who took the wrong...
I mean, if we really love Krishna, you know, Krishna wants us back.
Yeah.
You know, he wants us actually with him. You know, and we shouldn't keep Krishna. You know, we're making Krishna completely, you know, an anxiety or you know for us. Imagine if your children, you want your children back and they're not coming back. Can you imagine what it feels like? So we shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't do that to Krishna. We should just want to. Okay, if Krishna wants me back, I better do everything I can now so I can go back. So Krishna's happy. Because Krishna wants me.
I mean, for me it was like, when you said, what you said was for me was a complete answer. If Krishna wants me, whatever Krishna wants, that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
If he wants me back, that's fine. If he wants me to come back again, and if that's his will, that's fine. Because when the Prabhupada disciples are leaving the planet, and some of them are designed to be with Prabhupada wherever he is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's you know, but then someone said to Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada, I want to come back again and preach. And Prabhupada says, don't think you're that advanced.
Yeah.
So, you know, but according to the personality, the person, and Krishna's desire for them, you know.
Yeah.
If Krishna wants them to be with Prabhupada, then that will happen, you know.
Yeah. No, it's very, very. There's people out there who are. I was just thinking as well, like that when you talked about Lord Chaitanya, even the little funny man on the street yesterday with his cane, you know. You know, he's immediately started his path back to the spiritual world. That's how merciful Lord Chaitanya is. Like Lord Chaitanya looking down, oh, there's somebody dancing in Kirtan. Now his motivation for doing his little, you know, tricks with a stick might be different than we actually think, but that's all that Lord Chaitanya is only looking at the good.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful this situation is, and that's why they say that the demigods are queuing up to take birth in Hallelujah, because at other times they have to meditate for hundreds of thousands of years, you know, and the whole Sakya Yoga, you know, that the breath control, like on reading with Pachetas at the moment, they went 10,000 years under the water, you know, so it's an extraordinary time that we're living in.
And then those two girls, I don't know if you felt the disturbance when those two girls, they were drunk and they were perhaps sisters or whatever.
Yeah.
The point was they heard the holy name, they heard the chanting.
Yeah.
I mean, they were getting benefit for that. I mean, they were lucky they didn't get killed.
I mean, in one sense they were, yeah. No, definitely. You kind of think, my mind just went to it's a strange place there. Hare Krishna, and they want in front of when they get killed and they're hearing Hare Krishna or something like, you know, like it's so powerful or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, just my mind went there for a second. I mean, I'm not going to make a comment on that, but yeah, they would be making also advancements, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing, that even if they did get killed, it still would have been auspicious because they'd have been hearing the holy name.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a strange one, but anyway. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's all Krishna's arrangement.
Yeah, nothing is happening.
Because it was that I was in this. It was in May. I was travelling from Pramadana, and we were in a basically a huge, you know, it's like a field, you know, big roads, and, you know, it's like, you know, big farming community, you know, place, you know. And there was no one around, no one. It was about 10:30, and you know, it was doing chanting, and it was going, why am I here? Why am I here? and all of a sudden this Mercedes came out of nowhere on the crossroads, right, and went right past me, and then this bird floated down and landed at my feet, and I was chanting japa.
Yeah.
And then I realised, oh, it's been hit, and it left its body at my feet, and you were chanting, and a couple of minutes before that I was thinking, why am I here?
Yeah.
You get the point, you know?
Yeah,
really
yeah.
unusual.
No,
Because you just don't know. You just don't know what, you know. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
I think we're ready for our kirtan. Maybe we bring the cameras.
We continue, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess it's nice to have the
Yeah.
kirtan at the end. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for coming, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jaya